welcome back to my channel Books with Natasa. Today I will be filming my May wrap-up. I know it's been a few days since June has arrived, but it's when I have a minute, so I decided to film one for you guys because I'm really excited to talk about all these books that I read in March. Before we start this video, I want to come out and say I got braces. That's why I haven't been able to post for these past few days. It's taking a while for me to get used to, so wish me luck because it is quite a long process and I'm hoping to finish it soon. I know it's just started that I put them on, but it's really tiring already. In the month of March I read 23 books and I'm really happy for myself, even though it's not as much as I read the previous month, which I read like 30 plus books, but it is still quite a large number and I'm really excited to talk about with you guys. The first book that I want to talk about is Hirano to Kagiura Volume 1. This is the spin-off for Sasaki Miyano manga series that is one of my all-time favorites, and this one follows Hirano senpai and Kagi-kun, who are roommates living together in the dorms. In this one we see Kagi-kun play that is a sweet and super innocent character, much more than Miyano in the previous manga series, and we see Hirano senpai, who we've seen in the previous books, and see this different side of him while he's spending time with Kagi-kun. So we see this different dynamic between them and how Kagi-kun has feelings for Hirano senpai, and he tries to keep them a secret because he's not sure if they are actual feelings or it's just an aberration for him. So this book I gave 5 out of 5 stars and I can't wait to continue with the rest of the series. Next, I'm really excited to talk about this book, and that is From Blood and Ash by Juniper Hill. This is the first book in the From Blood and Ash series, and I have been meaning to pick up this series for the longest time ever. JLA is my all-time favorite author. I pick up everything she writes immediately, but the size of these books and the fact that they are high fantasy intimidated me a lot because it's been a while since I've read fantasy, and many of you know that I only read romance in these days, so I wasn't sure about this book. But the moment I picked it up, it was quite difficult to get into. I tried it like 3 times and each time I couldn't get past the first scene where they are in this inn or this establishment, so to speak. But as soon as I got past that point and read a little bit more about Poppy's character, and then Hawk appeared, after that I was hooked. The angst in JLA's books is amazing, and I absolutely love that I have this experience with her books and I'm able to guess some stuff for where the story is going, but also I can guess about 75% of the book and not about the other stuff, and still I'm loving it because she still has the ability to shock me to my core, and I absolutely love it. This book I gave 4.75 out of 5 stars, and I can't wait to continue with this. Next, of course, I picked up Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, Book 2 in the From Blood and Ash series by Juniper Hill, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. This one, it was amazing. It was enemies to lovers. It was like reading a romance book, and I actually loved it. Also, my theories all were correct except one. I was so happy that happened. I was DMing with one of my friends on Instagram and Discord about these books, and I gave them my theories and they were like, "You're super close, but I don't want to spoil you, so finish the book and then we'll get chat about it." And then as soon as I finished the book, I saw that all my theories were correct, and I was like, damn, I love it when that happens. So yeah. So now I'm going to spoil you the book 2, so if you don't want that to happen, please skip forward. But in this book we know now that Hawk is Castile, and I totally predicted that to happen because I have a lot of experience with this book. Also, this series gives me a lot of Akatar vibes, not to come all Sarjayma's fancy and hate on this book because it really has its own element. It's just the family moments and all of that remind me and give me the same feelings that I got from Akotar series and the Inner Circle. But in this one we see Castile wanting to marry Poppy so they can he can keep her safe and bargain for her so he can get his brother back basically. But he realizes that he has feelings for Poppy and he actually doesn't want her to be hurt, so they come into this arrangement to be married and so she can get her brother back and he can get his brother back. So after a while they just decide to stop pretending that even despite all this betrayal and this heartache that they have stopped feeling having feelings for one another. So after all that has cleared up, they have the most intense romance ever. I love them so much, and the fact that while they were having that super important discussion about how the relationship is gonna go in the future and how in fact they are feeling, then there is an attack in the place where they are and the sky is literally on fire, and I'm like, seriously, just wait 5 seconds to finish this discussion and then you can light the sky on fire. But I get it, but I loved it all of it. This book was super angsty and I was at the edge of my seat at the entire time and I loved it. Next, of course, we have The Crown of Gilded Bones, the third book in the Vol.6 series by Juniper Hill, and this I gave 5 out of 5 stars, and this book is my favorite in the series. And I loved how we got to see the Castile's and Poppy's dynamic in this one. They are already married and they start to navigate that relationship and open up to one another more, not keeping secrets. Also, Poppy has met Castile's parents now. She also has to decide if she wants to rule Atlantia because she is the rightful heir to the throne. Also, she is part goddess or designer of the gods in this book that we know of. I can't spoil the next one, but we have all these different situations that she needs to come to terms with, but she otherwise has Castile by her side. Also, there are a lot of people that want to hurt Poppy because they believe that she's going to bring the end of days because of some old prophecy, and that is the worst part because we have a lot of betrayals happening in this book. And the previous book ended in a huge cliffhanger, so we have here in the beginning Poppy being kidnapped and offered back to the crown, and just in the nick of time Castile comes in a rage and kills everyone because they took his wife, they imprisoned her, and they want to give her back to the Blood Queen and all of that, and it was amazing. This book was just amazing, it's my favorite. I have annotated the hell out of it. Also, the cliffhanger in this book was heartbreaking. If I didn't, I'm so glad that I decided to read this series after the 4th book had already come out, because if I had to wait for a year for that book to come out, I would have died, because I did this mistake with the Origin series, and the final book isn't coming out until 2023, and I've been waiting since 2020. But not to ramble about that pain in my heart, but yes, we have this huge cliffhanger at the end, and I was screaming, crying, and my heart was breaking, and I was like, give me the next book. Thank God I have the ebook ready for that one, so always well. Next we have The War of Two Queens from Blood and Ash series, book number 4 by Juniper Hill, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. In this one we follow 2 POVs, Poppy's and Castile's. Castile is being held captive by the Blood Queen because he offered himself up to save Poppy, because she was actually killing her, she was crushing her skull. But Poppy now is like heartbroken, she's basically a ghost, she doesn't want to sleep, eat anything, because she misses Castile, and she knows what torture the Blood Queen will do to him, because he has been held captive before and he has told Poppy all of that, what has happened during that time. So she's feeling very helpless, and she is in the middle of a war with the Blood Crown, and it's basically a lot. We have Poppy here being queen in Atlantia. She has done a lot of changes, and she has started a war with the Blood Crown and has threatened to kill everyone if they don't bring her husband, her king, back. That scene was amazing. Then we skip to Castillo's POV. We see him bound in the dungeons, dirt all over him. Basically, he's in a really bad state. They are starving him, and they have him locked up with I wanna say Kraken for some reason. Basically, these monsters that beat him, bite him, and all that. And it's like the worst possible experience ever. Also, his brother is there. He's like he has been causing up with the Blood Queen, and so he's feeling that betrayal so much. The only reason he's able to carry on is because Poppy is now safe, and he knows that she will come for him, so he just need to hang on until then. And then we skip again a lot of, not to give a huge rambling of the book here, but we see Poppy in a war, and this book is quite slower than the previous ones, because we see what happens while Castile is in captivity, and then there is like 1 month has passed until the time they are ready to go and save him, and it's like the worst experience ever, because they end up getting captured as well, and they see the state that Castile is in, and Poppy's heart is just breaking. My favorite scene in the entire book, I think that definitely that's my favorite, when Poppy and Castile find each other in their dreams, because they are heartmates, and they can do that apparently. And they start to kiss and say how much they miss each other, and then they realize that the dream is actually reality, and you see that look in their eyes. I mean, you read but you can see it, and they start kissing and tell each other, I'm coming, where are you, and give all this information, and then we are ready for Castile's rescue, and it's amazing. Thank God this book didn't end the cliffhanger, because book number 5 will take at least 1 or 2 years to come out, from what I've heard, because Jane Lake has been writing the origin book right now. Also, she's writing the spin-off book for this series, and also a new fantasy book, so we have no idea when the rest of the series will continue, but probably next year. Next, we read Spy Family Vol.6, and this one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. We got to meet this new spy that used to work with Twilight, and she makes an appearance, and she basically wants to ruin Twilight's Operation Strix, because she has feelings for him, and she wants to be his partner and his wife, and basically she's trying to make Yor disappear or give up, but little does she know that Yor is actually a powerful assassin, and it's not so easily pushed away, and I absolutely love that. This book, this volume wasn't my favorite, I have to say that, but I really love the tennis sequence with Twilight and this spy. I can't remember her name, but I know that I hate her. We didn't see a lot of family times in this volume, which made me really sad, because I love those. I also saw a little bit of Anya and Yor, and I really loved that, but under that it wasn't the best volume. I decided not to talk about rereads that I mentioned in the previous wrap-ups as well, so I just will mention them by name and ratings, so you guys know, but I will not give like a super spoiler discussion. For example, I reread All the Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read Bound by Honor by Cora Lively, 4.5 out of 5 stars. I read The Wall of Winnipeg by Mariana Zapata, 4.75 out of 5 stars. And that's it for my rereads. Next we have Storm and Fury by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this was my second or third reread of the series, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really wanted to go back into this world, and I have read The Dark Elements so many times, and I haven't read the Harbison series while all the books are out, and I really wanted to try that once because I did read them while book 3 was about to come out, but still I had to wait for like a month to read it. And I really wanted to read it again because I didn't remember a lot of details that happened in the third book, and I really just love this world and characters, and I really wanted to go back. So, book number 2, Rage and Ruin by Jennifer L. Armentrout, again 5 out of 5 stars. I love Jane and Trinity, the forbidden, also star-cursed lovers story is just amazing. You guys should definitely read it, especially if you love like angels, demons, and all that stuff. It's really amazing. And finally, Grace and Glory by Jennifer L. Armentrout, book 3 in the Harbison series, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, of course. In this one, we finally see Lucifer up in the earth, and I'm certain that Jaylee will continue in this universe because we got this little bit spoiler or foreshadowing, if you want to say, that we're going to have to deal with the Antichrist in the future. So hopefully that will happen, and we'll get to see Zane and Trinity again, and Rose and Layla, and all these different beautiful characters and the story and world. And I just can't wait to do that. Next we have Hirano to Kagiura Volume 2, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. In this one we see Kaji-kun confess to his feelings to Hirano, but Hirano basically rejects him because he's like, I don't feel that way about you, you're my kohai, and I like girls, so that's that, but I really want to keep being roommates and friends because I really do care about you and all that. So we try to see that dynamic between them, and it's amazing. Next we have Hirano to Kagiura Volume 3, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. In this one we see, even though Hirano has clarified that he doesn't have romantic feelings for Kaji-kun, we see a little bit some stuff that happen. And for example, he helps him study and spends a lot of time with him, and all his friends are like, do you do that for all your kohais, or just him? Why is he special? So Hirano senpai starts to think about it, but he just can't work it out because he really does care about Kaji-kun, but he doesn't know in which level he does, and he starts to think about, maybe I do have feelings for him. But this story is super slow burn, even more slow burn than Sasaki and Miyano. And I saw some fans in Twitter be like, we'll be waiting for volume 2, and then we were going to have a confession and maybe a kiss, and then in volume 35 we're going to see them dating. And I was like, this is so correct, and I can't wait to read all these volumes. Next we have this new series that I discovered very recently, and I'm super excited to talk about. And the first book is Indigo Ridge by David Perry, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. In this book we follow Winslow, who is a cop basically, and she decided to move back to her hometown because she is going to be the sheriff. So to celebrate her first night back in town, she goes to a bar and sees this super hot, handsome, amazing cowboy drinking at the bar. So they start to talk, and she's like, she's thinking he's a tourist, so I can try it because something that he said, and he also said that she is a tourist or something like that. So they both think each other is a tourist, so then they're not going to see each other again, so they hook up. The next morning they meet because she's basically royal family in this small town, and his name is Griffin Eden, and basically they're like, holy hell, I can't believe I just did that. She's the new sheriff and she's like friends with my grandfather and all that, so they decided to never speak of it again. So when a body shows up in the property of Griffin, she goes there to investigate, and it's like a continuing thing that happens every few years, that the bodies show up over there because people go over in the cliff to commit suicide. But she just doesn't feel right about this case, so they start to spend more and more time together, and then Griffin kisses her and she kisses him back, and they start to hook up again, but they are not sure if they are like seriously dating because both of them are busy and they don't want to do that. But before they realize they are dating, they have feelings for each other, and just amazing. You guys definitely read this book. Next, I read second semester. This is the second book in the campus stage by Gilded, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. In this book, we follow Serena, who goes to her father's law firm to do an internship, and he meets his partner Landon, and basically they have like the hero immediately chemistry wise, but he's like her father says. So one day he accidentally calls her at night because he wants her father to go and pick him up because he's drunk, but she offers instead, and they start to talk about, and she tells him that she's still a virgin, she doesn't have a special someone, or she wasn't interested in any of the guys around her because she just doesn't feel the fire. And basically they start to make out and stuff, and they agree to go on a date, and we see them in this relationship, and they have strong feelings for one another, so they start to date for a few months, and then they need to tell the father, and it's like, wow, you guys, if you love age gap romance, you're gonna love this one. Next, I read first semester. This is the first book in the campus days by Hubie Tyler, and I made the mistake of reading the second book, but they are connected, but they are also not. This book follows two sisters. In this one, we follow the older one, Skylar, who goes out to college in a new city and makes friends, and they decide to go in a bar and use this super elite dating website, and she meets this guy, and he comes to the bar, and they hit it off immediately, and they hook up basically, and the next morning he turns out to be her teacher, and that doesn't stop him for doing it again in his office. But then they're like, we can do this, you're my student, you're my teacher, and all that stuff, but they can't stop because they already have feelings for one another. So we see them navigate all that and the stress around it, and it's really nice, and I gave this one 4 stars. Next we have Juniper Hill. This is book 2 in the Eden series by Devin Perry, and I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. In this one we follow Griffin's brother Knox, who is a chef in the hotel, and this new girl that moved into town named Memphis, and her toddler of a son, and they moved into the loft above Knox's house, and basically are roommates. So Knox has been very heartbroken in the past by this woman, and the fact that, and her son, I can't tell you guys more because you're going to be spoiled for the book. You need to read it to have all the emotions. But they start to become closer because he helps her out a lot with her son, and he sees that she's actually a really nice girl, and they have a lot in common. So they start to act on their chemistry and their feelings, and it's like amazing. And you guys definitely read it. I love Devin Perry books so much, I decided to start from the ground up with all her books. So the first series I decided to read was Jameson Valley, and the first book in that series is the Coppersmith Farmhouse, 4.75 out of 5 stars. In this one we follow a nurse who just moved in after her short grandfather died and left her this farmhouse in this small town, so she decides to move here with her daughter to get her start. That's where she meets Jess, who is a big jerk at first because he thinks that he used his uncle, so to speak, to get this farmhouse from him, but then he realized that he actually cared a lot about them, and they did too. So he starts to apologize. Then they start to date, but she has a lot of baggage with her because because of her daughter's father. So Jess tries to break down all her walls and be closer to her. But then there are other stuff that happens in this book. Plot-wise, we have like drugs that happen in the town that Jess starts to stop because he's a cop. And we see that all connected to the hospital that Gigi is working, and we see all of that. So it's really, really good. We have book 2 in the Jameson Valley series, and that is the Clover Chapel, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. In this one, we follow Nick and Amy Manley, and we go back in the past first. We see them spend a few nights in Vegas. They fall in love and they decide to get married and try to make it work. But Nick has sort of a dark past and it catches up to him that night. So he leaves Amy alone in bed and leaves, and she tries everything she can to find him because she wants a divorce, but she has no luck. So fast forward a few years later, she moves into this small town to be a teacher, but then at the party she meets Nick and it's like, oh shit, that's my husband, and she runs away. And that's where our story basically begins. We see them try to reconnect with one another because they clearly have feelings for one another, but they're either have to forgive and get past. So I really did love this one. It was really amazing. The final book that I read in the month of May was The Likely Heart. This is book number 3 of the Jameson Valley series by David Perry, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This book follows Silas and Jesse's sister Felicity. We see her make a small appearance in the previous book, and she was a total bitch to everyone. So it was nice to see why she was like that, the problems that she had. We also see that she and Silas have a lot of history and it's like super complicated stuff. Also, we see that her ex-boyfriend Wes, we see how that has affected their lives, because as we see in the previous book, he is deep in drugs and stuff. So we see that play out in this book, and it's just amazing. These books are so good. They're not just romance books. They have quite a plot with them, and they are funny, and all the characters interact with one another, and it's just amazing. And you guys definitely read these books. So that's it for my video. I know it's a long one, but I hope you guys enjoy it. So like, subscribe, and stick around. And I would really appreciate if you give my accounts below some love. And I will see you for my next video very soon. Bye!